of the players who I've worked with who've made the top level.
Yeah.
Marcus Rashford did not go and do one-to-one coaching elsewhere.
Neil Harris has been a senior coach at Manchester United for over 20 years, working with the likes of Marcus Rashford, Kobbie Mainoo, Scott McTominay, Anthony Elanga, and many, many more.
If a parent is, you know, a bit too vocal about other people's children or their own child, can that ruin a child's opportunity?
I wouldn't say it necessarily ruins it, but it becomes exhausting.
There are conversations within academies where the coaches are saying, this parent's a nightmare.
That's an important message for parents to
Yeah,
hear.
no, that's why I wanted to come back to it.
So we can be conscious of how we conduct ourselves on the sideline. The parents want to know. So you're saying, like Michael Lee said, at 9 years old, you're like, whoa, that's when you spot this kid has a chance of making it, but also being the best in the world.
If you were to watch an under-9 match and you see Michael and somebody's like, right, bet on who's going to be a Ballon d'Or winner out of that, you would bet on him. Welcome to the relaunch of Project Footballer. Good news and bad news, depending on what side of the fence you sit, but we're going to be continuing without Sean. Luckily, we have an incredible guest in Neil Harris, and then today we'll also be with Jenny Boateng, helping us co-host as well.
So I want to introduce myself. Some of you might recognise my voice. I was lucky enough to be a guest on Project Footballer not so long ago, but I came with my son, who is the Premier League Academy Young Writer of the Year, and he's written a book, Back in Time, a football book on racism. And so I was here with him talking about the mindset you need to have to make it into academy football. And Sean said he liked what he heard and he has invited me to co-host. So I'm here to represent the parents. And hopefully we're going to get to the nitty-gritty of what parents really want to know when it comes about, you know, how do you build your project footballer. So I'm really looking forward to this episode. And I just want to say my sons and my husband are Man United fans. So they are really excited that I'm meeting you, especially my husband, who has been a Man United fan for as long as you've been there. So he's helped me prep, be like, ask this question. But to kick us off, the first question I have for you, Neil, is you've seen hundreds of talented players go through the United Academy system. And what's the first thing you notice when you think this child or this player has a real chance of making it? What is that first thing you see?
Obviously, it changes with regards to, you know, as they go through the age ladder and through the academy, through the phases. But the thing that I would say is that always looking for a super strength or an outstanding quality. Do they have? Obviously, I'll say a lot of this about the boys. I've worked in a boys' academy. You know, do they have an outstanding quality? Do they have something that maybe separates them differently from other players? Either if you're going to watch a game, if it's within their own training group, whether they're playing against an opposition. So, you know, we used to always, when we went on the tour, we might be playing Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Ajax, Inter Milan. But we always wanted to have the best player. You know, did we have the best player on the pitch? So I think for me, when I'm looking to say if a trialist came in, or if I had a new group that would come up to me at say under 13, I'd always be looking to see, you know, do they have an outstanding quality that's different to somebody else? You know, are they the best defender? Are they the best at 1v1 defending? Are they best at scoring goals? Are they best at linking, combining? Are they the most physical at the moment? But, you know, do they show, you know, good repetition of actions? Are they a good listener? Do they retain information? I think one of the things I really believe in is that the players that have gone on to play at certain levels and the highest level always were very good at retaining information. So either seeking it or being able to receive it and taking that on board. We had a conversation. We worked with many talented players who maybe just weren't able to retain that information. So therefore, the information that coaches were affording to them, or maybe via parents and via other parts of the MDT team, it just didn't click for them. And maybe that was a little bit of the issue with regards to getting to the highest level. So I'd say a lot of the players there, an outstanding quality that separates them from others, and maybe that retention of information really.
Can we go deeper though? So as a parent, I'm thinking, okay, identifying a super strength. All of the parents would think our child has a super strength. Are some super strengths more important than others? Like, which is more important? Is it a super strength of football IQ, or is it the physical aspects of the game, or is it the technical aspects of the game? So each child, especially in elite clubs, will have a strength. But which one would you say is the most important to having a real chance?
For me, I would always look at the technical aspect of it. So I would,
Okay.
and obviously certainly the younger ages. But for me, anything, you watch the top level game. You know, we were filming this last night was the Super Cup and managed to catch a little bit of the game. You know, the best bits that happened in that game were down to somebody's technical, whether they were able to bring down a ball, you know, without the ball was being played 60 yards and they brought it down, you know, on the run, whether they've taken it off the chest, whether they've been able to combine, you know, with a 1-2 pass. That's technical work that's then obviously gone into a skill. And I'm a big believer, I've said this a few times now, for me, a skill is a technique done under pressure. So we need to really continue to work on that technique work. And then the skill element is then, you know, the pressured environment, doing it under pressure. So the skill is the technique done under pressure, which then comes into the footballing IQ. Because again, you know, I've seen lots of people being able to strike a ball as good as first team players, but then are they able to make those decisions at the right level as they progress through an academy or any form of sport to then add that, you know, footballing IQ, as you put it there, this decision making things. So for me, I wouldn't look at the physical elements as much. Of course, the game is faster than ever, more physical than ever. But you know, we've got to make sure that we don't fall into a trap of just looking at the early developers, which I do think sadly is creeping into academy football. We need to make sure that we are looking at these players who can find a way, and at this moment in time are, you know, their growth and maturation is, you know, is obviously a little bit behind others, and that's why, you know, I'm a massive believer in the biobanding. Some clubs tend to do it for 1 week of the season. That's not enough. If you really believe in it, you know, we've got to make sure we find a pathway for all players. And at the same time, you can't help if you're more physical than other players at your age, the way you've developed, and you're an early developer, but then make sure that we aren't pushing that early developer purely on his physical attributes. So I've seen it happen again where maybe an MDT team or somebody has said, oh, the size of him, he needs to be playing up. We need to be pushing him up. And I'm like, no, but if you look at all four corners, with tech and tack being one, will he socially be able to deal with going up with an older group? Don't know. We'll have a look. Psychologically, will he be able to deal with it? Physically, he may look like he'd be able to deal with it, but actually when it comes to it, that physical growth is still different, because his actual age is still, his biological age is still this. So we've got to be careful also with early developers as well, because I think what I see a lot is that early developers get pushed up a lot, and all of a sudden you see these big boys at 12 playing for 14s, 15s playing for 16s, 18s playing, 17-year-old playing in 21s football, and what for me is they miss a real opportunity to be those bigger players, but maybe actually going and I think we spoke about it. We spoke on the flip side, didn't we, with Michael Owen and stuff, and we thought to speak to Paul Merson last night, and we're talking about players always want to play up all the time and things like that. And I think it was yourself or Paul, I can't remember now. Paul said, I spoke to Michael Owen the other day and he went, they always wanted to push me up, but I wanted to stay my own age and score 10, 12 goals a game, because I knew that was going to make me be a better finisher rather than have 1-2 chances a game playing up. Now I know if you're a bigger physical player, players want, coaches and an MDT team want to stretch you, but we've just got to make sure that we know the person, not just a player. And that's a massive philosophy for me. We've got to understand the person before we just look at the player and say, oh, he's a big physical boy, he can go and play up.
And then with that as well, I think understanding as a parent and as a coach the player's strength and their super strength, because there's so many players I've come across and they are trying to be a player that isn't their super strength. They're very intelligent. You watch them play a game, they can pick spaces, they can find holes, they can play off one and two touch so well, but then they want to be the dribbler and they want to be the centre forward, and then that's the sexy thing to be. So they're forgetting their super strength and they're going to try and be a player that they're not. And then all of a sudden, you're trying to develop and almost force that part of your game, when if you start concentrating on your super strength, and then you get to a stage where you're untouchable with that super strength, but knowing what that is and not just trying to be what's sexy.
But the challenge as a parent that I've seen, so my second son, he plays for Chelsea, and personally, I think he can do both. He can be that dribbler. He can be that one that can go through the whole team. But I think he's actually, if you speak to him, he's like, I'm a playmaker. He likes to do sweaties, and he likes that. But then I find that at the younger age groups, that doesn't seem to be celebrated more. Where I see, because you want your team to do well and score goals in a smaller pitch, you do what the dribbler person is just going to get the ball and shoot. But then you can sometimes, those children who do show can play a different type of game, get overlooked at the early stages. And so I think that's where it'll be interesting to talk about how coaches and academies balance that, actually, where maybe on a smaller pitch, the dribbler is getting the limelight. But what about the child who they can do that, but then also or they can't, but then their strength is one touch, two touch play and can create opportunities, but they're not getting opportunities.
That's got to come with the skill and experience of the coach. You know, we don't want one size fits all footballers. We've been through. Fortunately, you know, listening to what Matt said there, my tenure at Manchester United, I went through probably 3 or 4 different cycles. Not only at the club, I think we were quite good for a long period of time of knowing what long-term player development was and what type of players we were looking for. But I do think that I've seen sort of 2-3 cycles where it has changed. But the skill of the coach has got to know that there is a balance. We want balance. We don't want cookie cutter players all the time. And I do think at times, and I think Matt agrees from our conversation, we are seeing a lot of those players now. Everybody seems to want to play on the wings and be an inverted winger all the time because of social media and obviously the Premier League teams are doing it and all around the world, which is absolutely fine, because I remember when it was obviously you're on your normal side, etc. But we've got to make sure that, I think going back to Matt's point there, is that super strength, but also what I sort of call it really skill set specific. So actually, what do you need? What tools do you need to be technically proficient to be able to carry out the role that you want to do? Not a coach wants to do at a certain age. Yes, the older you get, there will be coach demands on you. But are you able to, if you are playing at the back in a back three in a 9v9 or something like that, are you capable of receiving the ball off your goalkeeper, being able to pass it back to him in one, being able to turn out and play forward to your winger, being able to have a good touch pass and break lines with your touch and drive in there and things. So that's where the skill of the coach has got to be, he's going to play in 2 or 3 positions at this young age. Does he have the skill set specific to be able to carry that out? Because I'm sick and tired of it, and Matt's had this so many times of me messing it to him, is that, hearing coaches say, he can't do this and he can't do that. And then I'll say, well, have you done it with him? Have you practiced with him? Have they had exposures to do that before, during or after training? At times we get caught up on what kids can't do and what players can't do, as opposed to going back to what Matt said there. What can they do? Let's enhance that. Let's build on that. Let's make sure that, if they're a right back, do they have the tools to be able to play to the maximum potential in that position? If they are asked to then go and play on the right hand side of midfield or in centre midfield, do they have the fundamentals to be able to go and play in any position at a young age? And those basics are scanning, passing, receiving, ball control, ball mastery, ball manipulation, and then you will see the natural dribblers, etc., who want to do that. So going back to your question, really, the skill of the coach has got to be to say, well, he isn't a dribbler there, but I tell you what, he didn't half see that pass then, he played around the corner or something like that. Let's reinforce that with that player. That was fantastic. And then also what I think is really, really important is then working on units then. So you work with that dribbler and you work with that passer, and then reinforce to the dribbler how important that person is who's just playing that ball, where you're able to get that higher up the pitch because he's been able to turn and play in 2 touch and things like that. So
they appreciate each other's
100%.
So can you bring that to life, like with some of the top players that you've coached? Can you bring that to life? Who has been like that dribbler and who has been that passer? And yeah, where their super strengths are different, but they've both made it in your experience.
Yeah, so I think in terms of, example with Marcus Rashford, when he was a young player, when we were still at 9v9, so probably under 12, maybe under 11, and because I had him for a couple of seasons, so I can't remember which one it was. And he was struggling a little bit. He was playing on the right wing, and he was struggling a little bit with receiving the ball with the play behind him as such. He wasn't able to work on his receiving skills, etc. So I put him as a right hand side of a back three at the time. Few people are like, he's not a defender. He's not a defender. It's an attacking option. It's so we can get the ball off the goalkeeper and carry the ball up the pitch, look to combine and things like that. And that really, for just half a season, he would dip in and out of the positions, but for half a season that really helped him in terms of just actually having the play in front of him.
Yeah.
And we weren't missing a step because we knew we'd come onto that, and it's a long-term player development model. It should be. We're not looking for those players to do here and now. We just wanted him to enjoy his football, get on the ball, be able to combine, be able to carry the ball, combine, overlap, get into forward areas, and actually probably be more attacking from the area where he was rather than sort of waiting for the ball.
I love that because sometimes as parents, you see the coach put, like my son's a striker, and you see them put him at the back, and I'm like, he cannot play at the back. You know, everyone will be like, why are they doing that?
But that's where the explanations have got to be really clear with parents, with and obviously guardians, or with the player. You know, that's the buy-in.
Yeah.
You know, that's the buy-in. I've mentioned this to Matt so many times. You know, for me, real learning takes place once a player knows that you care about them.
Yeah.
Well, how do you show that you care about them? Well, you talk to them. You know, I really want you to get better. You want to get better at this. Brilliant. Well, I think this will really, really help you. What do you think? Yeah, okay. Maybe show them a little bit of footage of a player similar. And then real learning takes place is once a parent knows that you care about their son. So, for example, I'm sure you've seen it yourself. If you see that a coach shows a genuine interest in your son and you know, he explains to you why we might be doing this thing, why he might not be going on this tour, why he might not be going to this tournament, but there's this one coming up and we think the reason why is this, subconsciously you then relax, which then means that the player relaxes, because as kids growing up, we listen to our parents, we like the same things our parents like, and we dislike the same things that our parents dislike subconsciously. So that allows real learning to take place. So I think that's where the coach, you know, I hear some coaches, or I've seen some coaches who keep parents at an arm's length. Nonsense. You have to bring the parents along with the journey. You have to remind them that it is a long-term journey and things. But you set those boundaries early doors. But I think as long as you bring them along with it and explain it to them clearly as to why you're doing this, and then it is an individual program, and we're only at under 12s. This is going back to the analogy of, you know, of building the foundations of you know, baking the cake. We're only at this stage. Some parents, some players might think that they're a little bit higher up. You know, and they're not far from the icing and the cherry on the top, and they've not even gone in the oven yet.
So, stop Matt if I'm talking too much, but he's hit on a couple of things that I just want to go into a little bit more. I love the fact that you talk about Rashford having something to work on, because I think for us parents, we see the likes of Rashford and people making it, and we just think they're always perfect. We think that in our minds that yes, they're developing, but I'm sure they were always perfect. But for you to say that he had to work on this at under 12s, it gives us hope that if our child is not perfect at something, they can still progress, develop and make it. But then you also touched on, like, if your child doesn't get selected for this tour or this tournament, you know, an explanation should be given and it's okay. Well, let's talk about that. Because even in your under 9s, under 10s, your child doesn't get selected. I've been there myself. I put my hands up. My child wasn't selected. I'm like, excuse me, what are you trying to say about my child? So what professional players have not been picked for something, but they've still made it? So to just let parents relax a bit, that if they don't get picked for Premier League nationals at under 11s, their football career is not over. They can still...
Oh my gosh, 100%. I can't think of any particular examples, but, you know, go back to players playing down, you know, which is, again, we can come on to, because that whole playing down gives that stigma, but they're just potentially playing in.
We call it playing across now, is what they're saying. We
fantastic.
Should say,
I do like they're playing across the foundation phase, or they're playing across the development phase. 100%. You know, so Jesse Lingard played across the ages, played down as we called it, you know, for 2 or 3 years. Paul Scholes did, Danny Simpson did, you know, Jesse Lingard scored a winning goal in FA Cup final, played in England in the World Cup and European Championships. Danny Simpson left Manchester United, won the Premier League trophy. So for me, it's all about the here and the now. But going back to your point about leaving people out, and obviously there's a lot more tours now than ever before. You know, gosh, you know, I think in my last couple of seasons at United, I think I went on 6 to 8 tours. It was, you know, it was crazy. It was all around fantastic, wonderful experiences for players and parents and stuff if they come, and coaches. But it has to be a conversation as to why. So this certain cup here, this certain tournament here, we think this is going to be potentially not ready for him yet, because it's, I don't know, a 5v5 or it's a 9v9 tournament, etc. However, he's going to potentially go on this one, or we've got a two or threes coming up there. Trust us that this is the reason why. It's tough. We get it. You know what? We wouldn't be happy if you just said that's fine, off you go. If the kid, because that, you know, the kid shows that he wants to play and he wants to go. It's tough. However, trust us. We think your boy's a good player. If your boy wasn't a good player, and I'm talking purely on behalf of what I would say to a player,
Yeah.
if your boy wasn't a good player, he wouldn't be here.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't be having a player here giving him false promises potentially. But your son is an under 9, under 10, who at the moment in time we think is of a Chelsea or Brighton, a Cat 1 academy player. It goes back to I think again I've spoke to Matt about this. There's at the club I worked at. There potentially where, and it'll happen at other clubs as well, where potentially every now and again they'll put a best v best session on, so maybe the best 11s to 13 session and things like that. And in the past, and not necessarily United or other club, but it was like we'll invite eight players into that group, and we'll do it on a Wednesday on a non-training night, and we'll give them an extra night and things. And I was just like, no, I'm telling the parents. So I literally stood up, I think 2-3 years at the start of the year, and I'm sure hopefully any parents that are watching this will remember this. And I said, listen, there is going to be an additional session.
Yeah.
2 or 3 boys maybe out of this group will be in that session, because at this moment in time, and that's the key thing, at this moment in time, we think that they may need an additional challenge, which is going with these players maybe playing up or playing at this moment in time. At this moment in time, there'll be some players in here that the core model and the Tuesday Thursday session is enough. Is enough at this moment in time, because it's challenging enough. We're looking at the full picture. He also plays cricket. He also plays he plays for his county team, whatever like that. At the moment, that's enough for him. However, that's not fixed. Some players may drop out of that. Some players may come into it. But I'm telling you now, that's happening. So there's no smoke and mirrors. I'm telling you now that's happening. Yeah. And that's why those players that are going into that group, we're not offering them scholarships now. We're not saying they're going to play for Manchester United or play for another club. We're saying at this moment in time, we're going to give them a little bit of additional thing. I think it happens in schools. I think if somebody's really, really good in science, they might take them out and say, you know what, we're going to put you with the best year 11, year 10, because we really want to challenge you. We're going to do an additional science group where we're going to really challenge you and things like that. That's tough for parents to hear, but I guarantee it's better for them to hear it than for them to find out about it and then you're chasing your tail and things like that. You have to be honest to parents. If you start lying to parents or kicking stuff down the road, kicking the can down the road, you're just causing problems for yourself. And you also recognise, you know which players are frustrated, you know which parents are frustrated, and that's again the skill of the coaches to make sure that you go and talk to them, not in front of everybody, but maybe when you see them going to the car. Have you got a minute? Mrs. Boateng? Yeah, okay, brilliant. Okay, doing really well at the moment. He's doing really well in this. And we've asked him to do this, and he's, you know what? He's listening. He's working hard on it. However, just a little bit, behind at the moment there. But we don't see that as a big problem. We're going to continue to work with him, and it's great because he listens, and you're on board with it, aren't you? Yeah. And there you go. You just said yes to me. I'm good answer. So that's the thing.
So good communication skills is a big part of coaching.
So do you get that as a mum? Do you get that sort of communication from the clubs?
So I'm a mum of 2 different clubs, and I'd say one club at the moment, I feel, especially the last season, very good communication. Seem very vested, very interested, let me know exactly what's going on all the time. I think when you're coming into the academy system, this is my opinion, tell me if I'm wrong, but they're all new. So I guess the coaches are getting to know them a bit, so it might take a bit of time. But I definitely see the value of building that personal relationship. I think the best coaches make you feel that they know you personally, 100%. But then they probably make all the parents feel that I know you. And I think that's it's part of doing a good job, like having that stakeholder management skills and knowing that your stakeholder is also the parent. Yes, your child is the prerogative, but their parent is your stakeholder. So how do you manage them to keep the peace in to keep the peace?
100%, because I remember going when my lads were at school, and I would go to a parents' evening, and obviously parents' evenings are very different now. And I would go, and they would ask me who my son was, and they would go down the list, and straight away I knew that they didn't know him. Now, obviously, they do teach a few more people at secondary school, etc. But in my head, I was like, you don't know my son. So the stuff you're reading out here now is probably a lot of copy and paste stuff, that thing there. And that was another one that's really vital. I think if you get an ADP report back, or you get I don't know how they do it, term time report back off the club, you know if it's copy and paste you know if it's actually, you know, really, really specific to your son or daughter, obviously, but your son in this case. You'll know because you will recognise the elements in there, and it also won't be a shock.
Yeah.
There should never be. It should never be. Same with releases. Releases should never be a shock.
Wow.
If they are, that's very, very poor by the club and the coaches. They shouldn't be a shock. But also the information that you get on an ADP or a report shouldn't be a shock, because that will have been stuff that the coach should have been talking to the player about, should have probably checked in with the parents every now and again, every couple of times, whether it's, you know, as they're grabbing a coffee, as they're walking to the car, coming in from the car, coming off the pitch. You know, so that some of the best conversations I've had with parents coming off the pitch, walking to the pitch, as they're going into the car on a night out, as they're just on the way out. They're the moments where you do it.
But Neil, you know the issue, and Matt, is that when you see another parent, not me, but other parents, they see a coach talking to another parent and they think, what are they talking to them about? It's really interesting. I feel like some clubs also feel that they need to manage what it might look like. If this coach is speaking to a parent, then doesn't mean that their child is being favoured. Sometimes I feel for academies, and I actually want to ask a question about that. So I said about stakeholder management, but tell us about how parents can potentially ruin the chance for their child. Is that possible? So if a parent,
how long have we got,
be
Matt?
honest. So if a parent is, you know, a bit too vocal about other people's children or their own child, or just always it feels like they're meddling in your coaching, can that ruin a child's opportunity if the parent is a bit too wild?
I wouldn't say it necessarily ruins it, but it becomes exhausting.
Okay.
So if that starts at 9 years old, and this player isn't going to potentially sign a scholarship till they're 16,
Yeah.
that's 8 years of exhaustion. And particularly for exhaustion for the coaches, for the parent, for the player, if they're always looking for what's next all the time, then it becomes exhausting. So that's where the coach, you know, and clubs need to really, really remind players and parents early on, and parent education is so important, that this is a long-term player development. You know, you don't move up a class in school. It doesn't matter. I don't know it unless school's changed. I don't think any year 7s get transferred to year 8 if they're really, really clever. They might do additional stuff, hence what I've just been saying there. Year 11 geography. I've never heard of year 7s being taught year 11 geography. You know, or missing out loads of bits. And then when it comes to year 11 GCSE geography exam, they go, we missed that out because we wanted to move him to a different class because he's really, really talented in this. So for me, it's exhausting. Unrealistic expectations. So that's where coaches have got to manage that as well. And that's not being negative all the time. That's just he's okay where he is at the moment. You know what? The best message I used to say to parents is, you know what? He's exactly where he needs to be at the moment. And if a parent thinks that's not enough for me,
Yeah.
I used to hear that if my history teacher or my job say, you know what? He's on track. I'd be like, great, brilliant. Does he do anything? Does he do anything really, really well? Yeah. You know what? When we did the Tudors,
Yeah.
he was really good at that. Struggled a little bit with the.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm really struggling now with
the
Victoria
Anglo-Saxons.
Anglo-Saxons. Didn't really get the Anglo-Saxons, but really good on the Tudors. I'm like, great, okay. Does he need to do anything? No. Brilliant. We'll sort it. We'll sort it in class. We'll sort it. So I think it can just become exhausting if there's a constant pressure. And the biggest thing is FOMO, which says, you know, you're there if the coach is talking to parent. But it's the biggest thing is me versus me, you versus you. And that's the biggest thing I'd speak to parents off straight off the bat. You know, I could look at my next door neighbour who's got an extension and a Beamer and be like, why has he got that? I work harder than him. Why has he got that? Flipping out. But I don't know what job he does, what money he earns, what his wife earns, what his parents earn, etc. You know, he might want it a lot. So you just can't. You've just got to look after your own son's journey. Look after your own thing. If you start looking and saying, why is he doing that? Why has he got that? He's played 3 more minutes than my son this week? Well, that's not right. And he always plays in his own position.
I like that.
And it's got to be you versus you, me versus me. And listen, we're all human. We do it ourselves naturally. So it's you know, it's tough at times. But that's the biggest thing I'd say. Don't worry about them. Worry about your son's journey. Worry about they're having a great time. That every time they want to come back, it's like Christmas Day to them. Particularly at the younger ages, but it can be at any ages. how can we protect that lifelong love of football? That's our jobs as coaches. If we're not doing that, then I'm not too sure we're in the right game really. So we've got to see through some of the buff which you're talking about there, but we just need coaches who are good on the grass, but understand that coaching is not just on the grass. Coaching is everything. Coaching is what I've just talked to you about there. Parent education, player education, knowing when to speak to players, knowing when to speak to parents, knowing when to push players, when to actually just, it's okay. And I think the best coaches withhold information, so they know what comes next. So again, the beauty of being there for 21 years, I know how players were that have played in Champions Leagues, in World Cups, in European Championships, FA Cup finals, have won the leagues. So knowing that is great, but I don't then go, oh, you know what, I'm going to start, because he's now going to win the European Championships, Champions League. I'm going to no, it's like, that's great. I know that, so I know what the journey looks next, but I also know what now looks like, and we need to focus on this now, and we don't need to go through that. And that's a real thing that I think is worrying in academy football now, is a little bit of premature professionalism creeping in, from coaching, from MDT teams, and then that
When
has
you say
filtered down.
MDT teams, what's that?
So an MDT, multidisciplinary team,
Okay.
so that would include sports scientists, analysis,
Okay.
education, psychologists, physios,
Yeah.
etc. like that. And these are huge teams now in academies. And by the way, some wonderful, wonderful, highly intelligent people, outstanding people who want to work with children. But we've got to make sure, and again, me and Matt spoke about this here, that one size doesn't fit all with regards to an MDT team. I know I'm going off here now, but just while you mentioned that MDT team, so for now, or now I see it that everybody goes off to analysis, everybody goes off to education, everybody goes off to see the sports scientist do the same warm-up, everybody goes and speaks to another department, I can't think of it at the moment now, whatever, play care or something like that. But not everybody needs that. So I know players, some that Matt just listed there, that if we sat them down in analysis for half an hour, they are literally just thinking about unicorns and rainbows and what they have for tea. They are not seeing it on there.
Yeah.
However, there'll be some kids who really, really like seeing them on there, and it might really work. So
But
not everybody has to go and do.
How do you identify that?
So that's where that's for me is where when we're talking about coach education and things, it's not the X's and the O's on the pitch, on tactics boards and things like that. Coaching is the full holistic thing. It is about, for me, one of the biggest tools of a coach has to be their observational skills. So you can plan the session on the paper, or iPads these days and laptops, but you can plan the session on there. But you must also observe within that session of what's actually happened. You can't just run the session as it was on the paper. It doesn't happen like that. We're working with children, so stuff will change within the session. And are you flexible and adaptable? We want our players to be flexible and adaptable, but as coaches, are we flexible and adaptable enough to change mid-session and actually, leave your ego at the door there, that it hasn't progressed as much? Well, actually, maybe the session wasn't conducive tonight because it's really, really windy. I worked in Manchester. Cold, it's wet, it's windy.
Brighton is...
The mannequins are blown over. That session's out the window, so we need to change it to the tune of the players. But going back to that point about the MDT team, one side doesn't fit all. For me, they don't need, everybody needs to go and do the same thing. That's where going back to the observational skills, the observational skills of the coach with the MD team into support should be to say that that player's struggling a little bit with his running at the moment. I think we can maybe work on his gait, but maybe just needs a little bit more power, or maybe needs to do the older he gets, obviously, a little bit maybe upper body work. Right, okay, brilliant. Sports scientists, you're going to take those 3 lads over there. These 2 lads really, really benefit from showing them something on an iPad to say, tell you what, did you see your foot? You were really good at weekend, but have a little look at that. What do you think there? So show them really some good stuff that they did at weekend. Again, age specific. What do you think you could have done better there? Oh yeah, I could have ran off the back of him. Brilliant. Yeah. Okay, great. And then what great is wonderful analysts that we've got. They've actually premeditated that and actually show him a little bit of movement. Then you might show him some best practice. You might show him Marcus Rashford or Saka or whoever, Salah, doing that same thing. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Well, tonight's session, by the way, tonight's session's about you. We're going to do a little bit of that. All of a sudden you've got this kid. So he might really benefit from seeing that. But somebody else is looking at an iPad and going, I don't see anything. So you have to coax them out of it. Some psychologically, you might just say, just beating himself up a little bit at the moment, and we could do with just helping him out a little bit. Find out a little bit about the player and what's going on. Okay, well, maybe the parents are splitting up, or his dog died recently, or he's just really beating himself up because he's got a new teacher and doesn't really get on with his new teacher. Find out the things, the person before the player, and then you might just say, can you just have a little chat with him, see if he does. A different voice might be really, really good. For me, we can't. One size doesn't fit all. We can't be sending all these kids to all these different places to do the same things all the time. And that's not saying that there's not wonderful work that's going on in the MDT teams. I'm really not saying that, because there are some wonderful, wonderful, talented people. I just think, can we be brave enough to start being a little bit more observational on an individual basis? Could we talk about being an individual program? All right, well, let's make it look like one.
Yeah.
Being a little bit more blunt, I guess, with going back to about the parents.
Yeah.
There are conversations within academies where the coaches are saying this parent's a nightmare. And it does, because I think that might have been what you're trying to get at a little bit as well. Yeah. So there will be a point where, not always, but there may be a point where you're sitting down talking about contracts and extensions and stuff, and it's like the players 50-50, and the coaches will, Dad's a nightmare. Wow. Like, and it will lean towards let's not offer because the parents are an absolute nightmare. I think
that's an important message for parents to
hear.
Yeah,
that's why I wanted to come back to it.
So we can be conscious of how we conduct ourselves on the sidelines and and I like...
And they talk as well. So there's... It's a small world, and you'll have, if a player gets released from a club and maybe part of the reason was nightmare parents, and they go for another club, that club will know a coach from that club. Oh, what's so-and-so like? You don't want to deal with him. That does happen. Those conversations happen.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's important parents know that they represent their child. Like how you'd expect a child to go on tour and represent the club, you also represent your child. So I think that's really important.
And what you're doing externally as well. So I know a lot of clubs, some are, some aren't keen on doing extras.
Okay, let's talk about that.
But then... yeah,
let's talk about that.
But honest to God, coaches, scouts, they'll sit there. Oh, so and so's off doing this and this and this. We told them not to do this, but we still see them going off and doing this. So so there's that part to it where you are grinding and it's exhausting for the coaching team and everyone else involved with the club. And then how can I put this? It's human nature to want to try a little bit harder for the people you like and get on with. So all of a sudden, if you're rubbing up the coaches the wrong way, you're to go, I'm not going to go out my way for you. But if there's a player and a family that respond really well to you and you get really close with and you're warm with, and all of a sudden you'll do a little bit extras for them. And that's just human nature, isn't it? You go out of your way for people you like and for people that you respect and trust. And if you say to a player and a parent, we recommend this, and then they see you go off and do that, they listen. Okay, yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Oh, we recommend you do this, and you're going to do something else. I'm not going to give you the time of day again. I've given you my advice. You've gone and done the opposite. And then when decisions come, that stuff gets remembered.
So from your experience, I'm not saying Manchester United do this, but as in the academy system, these conversations, do they happen in the academy, behind the academy walls? Where you can say that parent is a nightmare. And,
100%.
And this person's borderline, so...
I would like to think that the professionalism of the coach will acknowledge that the parents need some additional education and some continued education. Obviously, there's different levels. If a parent is abusive and things like that, then that's a completely different conversation. If they are exhaustive and unrealistic expectations, that's where I was so fortunate to work with so many experienced coaches when I came in as a young coach, who were outstanding at speaking to parents, outstanding at speaking to players, who guided me. And you might be just say, I need a different voice here. I need you to go have a little conversation with them there. Or you might bring in, an ex-parent who, whose son has played for the first team, is still in the building, and acknowledges that he was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Or her was a nightmare. And ask them to speak to them and just to tell them, because there's so many times, and that's the beauty again of of being old or being at the club for so long is then speaking to players who've played in the first team and played professional football and speak to their parents again, and they're like, oh, yeah. And I remember one parent said to me, I was in the Man United lounge at a home game, and his son was tearing it up at the time in the first team, and he said to me, oh, that was a nightmare, Neil, wasn't it? And I think he expected me to go, oh, no, you were all right. Yeah. And I went, yeah, you were. And he went, oh, right. I was like, yeah. I said, you'd ring me on a Saturday afternoon when I was spending time with my young family. I said, wanting answers as to why this and that, and you watch training and stuff and things. And I said, you were exhausting. I said, it was constant all the time. And he's like, oh, no, absolute nightmare. I owe you a beer, don't you? And I said, I think you owe me more than one. But then the thing was, then got him to speak to said parent at that time.
Okay.
And he just said, honestly, these are the best times. 13, 14, these are the best times. Just sit back and enjoy it. It's, get your hammock out. Tony Whelan used to say, get your hammock out. These are the best times. These are the best times. Just come and enjoy watching your son or daughter play football, because sadly, and I've got some stats which we can go through shortly, 0.0012, I think it is. I'll correct it in a minute if I'm wrong. Make the Premier League out of academy football. But then I think the other stat is that 1% make professional footballers. So if we're only working towards the 1%, what are we doing for the other 99%? And another stat is 100% of these are going to become adults. I'm pretty sure I'm all right with those maths.
Yeah.
100% of these kids become adults. So what are we actually, coaching them for? I think we're coaching them for hopefully a game in football. But we should be coaching that, as in like a long-term, playing at the highest level they possibly can. But it's not going to happen to all of them. Yeah. So we want to create that lifelong love of football. And if we start doing too much premature professionalism, doing other things that we are seeing, creep into academy football now, and agents and all the other additional activities that Matt mentioned there now, we are going to kick that lifelong love out of football out of the game, because I know it now. It's happening to kids at 13, 14. And I'm not just talking at academy, I'm talking at grassroots. The stats for grassroots is frightening. And I can get them up in a minute, of players coming out of the game at 12, then coming out of the game at 14. And then from 15 onwards, it's ridiculous. So as coaches, as people involved in football, it is our duty to preserve and ensure that these players retain a lifelong love of football, while still creating high challenge, high support environments where the best players flourish, the best players are challenged, the best players get to their destination. Our job is then, of the players who may be just a little bit below that, can we get them to the highest possible level? And then maybe the players that, who were talented at one moment, or talented enough at one moment in time, go back to that point, to be signed at that age and to get an additional contract. Okay, are they still involved in football? Do they still go and watch? Do they take their son or daughter to watch now? Because we created an experience that hasn't scarred them. Yeah, that hasn't scarred them. Yeah. Or have we? Yeah. So you speak to players, and on rejection and on the scrap heap at, I did inverted quotes for listening on the podcast, rejection, who are then coming out of the game and think, I don't want to touch another ball. And we do hear stories about that. That's on us.
So on that, Neil, because I think Matt also spoke about like doing extras. So how much should an academy child be doing? So think about preserving the love of the game, but then also balancing that you want them, a parent wants their child to progress, to be on track, but to be honest, parents want their children to be above average. Yeah. So how do you balance that? Like, speak from experience to kids that have made it, whether you've agreed with their approach or not, how much were they doing outside of academy football? I
would say that
how much was Elanga, Rashford, Kobbie Mainoo?
Not a lot. So
tell us.
Those players that you talk, we spoke about it before. So I was recently in Romania doing some coach education with a wonderful group called Radical Football, who are really trying to change the game in Romania and give power back to players and coaches, educating them and things. And I was with Dutch coaches, German coaches, Czech coaches, and obviously Romanian coaches. And when I say to them about the current players and things like that, they just like, same me. Who did they talk about? Gerrard, Rooney, Lampard, Ferdinand, Scholes. Well, these were street footballers. They didn't go and play anywhere else. They did not go and do
But
one-to-one
is that
coaching.
is that a different generation?
But you just asked me there, of the players who I've worked with who've made the top level,
Yeah.
Marcus Rashford did not go and do one-to-one coaching elsewhere. Mason Greenwood did not go and do that. Anthony Elanga did not go and do that. Now, they do it when they're in the first team. So what they will have done is played a volume and a variety of football.
Okay.
So within the academy, they will have played a volume and variety of football, different formats, played up, bio-banding, played in tournaments against different teams, different experiences, etc. But they would be encouraged to go and play for their school, for their town team, for their county. So they would get a volume of variety, but also street football. So I used to be very fortunate. I used to go and pick Marcus up 4 days a week for 2 years. And he'd always be out on his front doing kick-ups, messing around, all different ages on this big grass pitch in front of his house and things like that. You know, these players, when they weren't at the academy, were going and playing in the park, were playing in the streets. We are now taking these players...
unorganised.
100%.
But touches on the ball, but...
No adults involved.
Wow.
No adults involved.
So just having fun with
now,
the ball.
adults control everything in academy football. Whether you are in adults control everything in football now, in youth football. They control grassroots football, schools football, academy football. Okay? So when we talk about players going and doing one-to-ones now, you see 5, 6 kids going and doing it. This is not having a go at people at all, because people have got a right to earn money and a right to pass their experience onto things like that. But I would say now to an academy player, because you're right, we're in a different stage now where there's FOMO. So if somebody sees that Johnny's
amplified by social media,
100%. If Johnny's got a certain coach there, and certain coach has said, "I'll give you free or half price if you come away your Man United, City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea gear," and I'll put it on my social media to say that I coach a Man United, City, Arsenal, Chelsea player, great. That same player who's done it, Bolton, Burnley, Blackburn, give me some clubs down here, Watford,
AFC
Wimbledon, like
Luton.
that, who then says, well, this player goes to there, so I need to go to there. Don't think they're getting a half price. And then that might be from a family who isn't affluent enough to do it. So now it's like that whole thing, you know, when now all the players get boots. Well, it used to get to a stage, you know, when I played at United and when I was at other clubs, I'd have to go and buy my boots and stuff. So I didn't have the best boots because my dad worked 3 jobs and my mum was working as well and things. I had 2 older brothers and stuff, so I didn't have the same gear that some lads had. So it gives you that inferiority. So we're putting pressure and additional stuff via social media on players having to do this, you know, additional things at times. What me and Matt talk about there is can we create, you know, an environment where people go and work on fundamentals, so they're not just working on the same things all the time. Going back to that one size fits all. How does this fit you? So for me as an academy coach, over the last 3-4 seasons, there's one-to-ones and additional sessions and activities crept in, because it's not just football, they'll go and do stuff. I would look at the IDP. I would look at the parents' conversation I've had with the player and the parents to say, well, okay, he needs to get a little bit better at this. We're supporting him in-house. You're asking me, would he benefit from going to see a one-to-one coach? Well, if he's going to go to a one-to-one coach and he's a fullback, you're going to continue to work on receiving to his back foot and clipping the ball into the number 9 or wrapping the pass into a 6 in there. Yeah, if he's not too tired. If alongside his schoolwork, alongside with coming to us 2-3 nights a week, and I know that can be more in certain academies, and playing at weekend and getting on a bus and travelling on a Sunday. If you think that the player is, you know, he's not tired enough to do that, then okay, that is your choice to do that. If we think that,
but will those players who the parents say yes, they're not tired enough to do it, they will do it, do they make it over the ones that don't do it? That's what it
not
comes down to.
necessarily. No.
Okay.
No, I think I would actually say I would say that the players recently who have come through have had enough inside the club, and the ability is enough that they haven't required that. Now, I'm not saying that going outside to other clubs, to other coaches or whatever industry will add you and maybe get you over that threshold line that we spoke about there, just getting you over that line to get the next contract. Because that's all you're doing. You're just trying to get the next. Am I good enough to get that next contract? Whether it's 1 year or 2 year, depending on which age group and stage you're at. Will this help me do here? However, if I'm a fullback or a centre back and I'm going to go to a one-to-one coach and do 50 1v1s attacking and ball striking, I think you're probably best resting that night, or going away and doing something that's relevant for your skill set or your position potentially. Because, by the way, resting's a great activity.
It's true.
Resting is a great activity. And the problem is without social media, unless you have parents who talk and stuff and say, which they do, and that's by the way, I know there's a lot of pressure on parents. A lot of pressure on parents that comes from social media, comes from FOMO, comes from hearing that what Johnny's doing there, seeing it on their screen that Johnny's doing that there. Okay, but actually, players grow when they rest. Honestly, players grow when they rest. I'm seeing it now in academies. We used to give them 5 to 6 weeks off, and we encourage them to go and do other sports and things like that. But we said to the parents, they need to rest as well. Now I'm hearing...
So that's the off-season time.
The off-season time. Now I'm hearing about like academy breaks being 3 to 4 weeks, and then having like, well, if you want to come back in, we'll put some voluntary... Well, they're all going to come in because they think of the fear of missing out on things.
Yeah. Players
need to rest. They need to grow. They need to go and be children. They need to go and be doing other things in the park that, you know, is vital for childhood, because we've got to preserve that childhood. We are guardians of their childhood. When they come to us, they are children. These are still children, first and foremost. They're not footballers. Yeah. These are children. How do we treat children in other industries? Because I think football at times, you know, we forget that these are children. And by the way, it sounds like I'm having a massive bash at things like that. There is unbelievable work that goes on in academies. There is unbelievable work that goes in grassroots football. There's unbelievable work that goes on with outside activities. But it's you versus you, me versus me. Do I need to go and do the same session that Johnny's done over there? Or actually, we've got 2 games at the weekend. We're playing Saturday and we're going to, I say Derby because that's quite a far one from Manchester to go to. Okay, well, he's going to be tired, isn't he, really? You know what? He's going to rest tonight. Go and be a kid.
But you know what? I think this is actually elite mindset, because I went to Cambridge University, and before that, the schools that I went to, I was easily like top, the best. And when I went to Cambridge, I said, everybody is a genius. Let me focus on myself, because if I look at I would actually just falter. And I said, let me focus on myself. What do I need to do to get my first class? But I think a lot of parents, before they're in their grassroots clubs, their child is probably that superstar, that you know, Ronaldinho of that grassroots team, and you come now into a club where everyone is good, everyone has a super strength, and so it is a mindset shift where you think, okay, let me focus on my child. What if the other child is playing up? That's okay. And I think my husband and I think we're now been in the academy system for a few years now. We're still early, still in the youth development phase. But I think we know that let's focus on our like whatever's happening. As long as what you said, just focus on getting the next contract. Let's just have that in mind. What does our child need to do? My husband is actually, sometimes I think he's a bit relaxed. And I'm like, by the way, babes, I've seen on Instagram, he's like, so they're resting. But it is something you have to be intentional about, because you can easily get sucked in. And it's hard because you do think that, oh my gosh, my child will be left behind. But it's encouraging to hear from someone with your experience that you don't need to do all of that to make it. You don't need to.
I always think that if you go back to sort of, and my kids are adults now, so it may have changed a little bit. But when my kids were going through sort of GCSEs and things like that, you know, again, it's money to pay a tutor for, I can't remember what it was now, for a science or maybe a maths, because the teacher, a conversation we had with the teacher was, he's doing okay in this and he's doing okay in that, but he might just need a little bit of work there. What about if we get a tutor? Yeah, might not harm. 6 sessions with a tutor, if you can afford it, great, go and do it. So, but I reckon there'll be certain people like that. If you're flying and you don't need a tutor, because the challenge you're probably getting is enough. And I'm sure when you got to Cambridge, you didn't think, I'm better than her at whatever subject it was. I'm better at her than that. You didn't know. Yeah. The problem with football is it's very opinionated. It's very objective. People have got an opinion, you know, because of they watch football, watch the game. They think they're experts and things like that. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert, but
you're an expert.
I'm not. But the problem is people just have an opinion on football. You know, if my son was a talented swimmer or dancer or pianist or something, I guarantee I'm not going into that industry and asking them questions. If they may say, you know what, they might need to do a little bit more here, or the swimming coach says, perhaps you need to look at this or something. Right, great, okay. It's just because football obviously is the biggest game in the world, and everybody's got an opinion on it. But you're spot on. That's a great analogy, hopefully, for parents to hear that you've been through that yourself. is just focus on there, because it becomes exhausting, and it becomes exhausting for you, not you, but for parents themselves, and that projects to the children. 100% that projects to the children, and then they feel like they're on trial, because then the pressure's on at the weekend to try and do this, and it goes back to Matt said there, then they don't start passing to somebody. Well, actually, that's detriment to your game, and if I'm a good enough coach, I'm going to pick you up and say, you should have picked that pass. Now, you're not going to turn around and say, well, my dad didn't tell me to pass to him. But they'll know that.
Yeah.
And it might not be because the dad says, don't pass to him today. But the message in the car prior to him is, he always has the ball and doesn't he? He never gives it to you. Tell you what, that coach, he loves him all the time. Plays him in his best position all the time. And all of a sudden, that player's thinking, I don't want to give it to him, because my dad might say afterwards, why did you pass him to him 3 times? He doesn't give it you back. Whereas for his own progression, passing that ball, a good coach pulls him and says, that was brilliant, that. I know you didn't get it back, but you spotted him 3 times and you put him in 3 times. And that's where the skill of the coach comes in, is to say it. And then as you're walking out or catching that dad to the car park, just say, thought he was terrific today. And he's probably got his back up already, the dad, and just say, because you know what? I've been speaking to him about looking for that pass and trying to find his forward plays early. He did it 3 times, and he passed to Johnny 3 times. And you know what? He didn't get it back. And that's. I'm not going to talk about Johnny here now, but we're working with Johnny on that. But for your son today, that was brilliant. And he walks in the car there then and stuff. So we've got to make sure.
I see how you've had 20 years at United. I see the skill. You and I would work well together.
I think going back to the extras as well, like, it is about being smart and training smart, and more isn't always better. Yeah. But you do hear there's like I remember seeing Robbie Fowler do an interview, and Robbie Fowler, for our generation, obviously one of the best, gets frustrated that people think he's one of England's greatest natural goal scorers and one of England's greatest natural strikers. He said, the amount of work I'd done to be natural. And he's like, I was one of England's greatest natural goal scorers because for hours and hours and hours, I would take a bag of balls and I would practice my finishing. That's why I was so good at finishing.
But it wasn't with an adult.
So, oh yeah, I know.
That's what I mean, on his own.
Just
taking on his own.
But then you guys are talking about talking about something else now, which is about that self drive.
But the extras, just in general, it's about being smart with them and just making sure it's the right thing to do, because there are people doing stuff, they're following the herds, they're doing what they think they should be doing because they see everything on Instagram, but they're not actually. Robbie Fowler, his extras, he probably didn't go and practice 1v1s in a defending sense, or he got a bag of balls and he knew he was a centre forward and he practiced his finishing, and that was what he was doing.
Okay. So on that, Robbie Fowler, knowing what he's training for, very specific to positions. But
what he enjoyed doing.
What he
Goals.
Okay, what he enjoyed doing.
How can I get better at
what
scoring
he enjoyed
the goals?
doing, but just on positioning as well, because I've heard some parents, at under 9 saying my child is this position, and if a club doesn't play them at this position, then they can't see the gift in my child. I'm moving them on. So let's talk about positions. When, in your experience, do you notice, or when can you decide that my child is going to play a position? And then on the back of that as well, we also see a lot of players who might start forward and then gradually moving to the back. How does that happen as well, and why?
Yeah, well, Scott McTominay was coming through was obviously physically small, but we had obviously a good idea that his dad was a good size and he was a good footballer. First of all, I did a documentary with Scott about 18 months ago, and we spoke about his growth and maturation and how his parents trusted the coaches for us to say, listen, he's a good footballer first, and he shows some real good attributes and things. It's fine when he's going to get there. He played centre forward for the reserves for a season. Whilst he was growing, I think he made his first team debut, or he certainly played under Mourinho in a back 3. And I remember it West Ham away. Then now he's just, he's MVP of Serie A, just won the thing, and he's in the Ballon d'Or. Go on, Scott.
I want to ask a question on that as well.
Scott. Vote for Scott. So players playing different positions, it can happen. What I'm saying is it can happen really, really late. There used to be a stat. I'm not too sure. I'd have to check. Maybe it's changed a little bit, but it used to be that you very, very rarely made your Premier League debut in a position that you ended up in.
Okay.
So going back to the Jamie Carragher's midfield, Ledley King's midfield, Rio Ferdinand played in different positions. you very, very rarely made your debut in the position that you ended up in. I would say that it's becoming a little bit earlier now. So I think people are looking for specialists a little bit early because of the demands of modern football and what skill sets and attributes look like in certain players. I personally was never of that. You quite early know if somebody's going to be a little bit more defensive or offensive type of player, and you maybe help them with that. But the flexibility around that and versatility for me has always been really, really important, all the way up through to to the first team. I'm old enough to remember when a first team manager say, well, we need a right back to just come in and play in the in the shadow squad before a game and things, and all of a sudden does well, and actually he's going to come on the bench with us tomorrow in a right back when he's a centre midfielder, because he's so. We were very, very proud at United that when teams would in the past, clubs maybe play set formations and would pigeonhole players very, very early, we were very much of the belief is that we need them to be able to have as many different attributes and fundamentals as they possibly can. Are they good scanners? Can they pass and receive with different technique and variety and ranges? Can they disguise the pass? Can they play off 2 feet? Can they play through, around, over? All those attributes. So then, when they used to go out on loan or when they used to go out to certain clubs, we'd have feedback from people, and they'd say, you can tell he's a Man United player, the way he handles the ball, the way he looks after himself, etc. And what that might mean is that you don't necessarily potentially play for Manchester United, but I think the stat that goes round, I think there's a couple of clubs in Europe now of the players that have been produced by Manchester United Academy that are still playing in professional football or have played professional football at whatever level, and equally as proud of all of those players as we are of obviously the names that Matt mentioned before, because it's a tough business to get into, as I said with the stats before. We've given them the attributes to be able to go and apply themselves. So if you play a certain way, if you're a left back and you play the same way as the first team does as a left back, which is you become inverted, your winger tucks in, inverted wing, and then you have to overlap, or you're only allowed to play a certain amount of passes. What happens then is you play really, really well for your academy up to a certain point, and then you're probably going to get released. Horrible word, but you're gonna leave the club. Okay, you're now going to probably drop down to a league below, or a couple of leagues below, maybe even lower than that. Have you got the attributes that when you're going to go and play in that football now, and they say, "What are you?" I'm a left back. Okay, well, we want you to get the ball out your feet and clip the ball into the 9, and then go and then get up the pitch. Have you been able to cross balls in on the run? Have you been able to cross balls from deep, from the byline, etc.? Well, we want you to do that. You can't do that. So, are we preparing players enough, not just for our first team, but just to be able to be professional footballers? Because that is hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
Of course, when they're at Chelsea, Manchester United, Liverpool, Everton, Manchester City, etc., we think, oh, well, Manchester United have this type of player, or City have this type of player, Chelsea have this type of player, whatever it is there. But the stats say they're probably not going to play for your first team. Yeah. So are we neglecting them by not giving them the basic fundamentals, which Matt's place for Gen Football works on those basic fundamentals that we can continue to work on.
So transferable skills.
Transferable skills, 100%. Are they adaptable? Are they resilient? All that MDT team work that comes into it there then. However, you will probably know a striker quite early on, or a forward player. You'll probably know somebody who looks like he enjoys defending, etc. from there. But for me, I would say probably 13, 14 is when they start to realise that might be the position, and that's when it probably starts to look like academies will have depth charts. And obviously I'm not really talking about the grassroots game here, apologies, but from the academy game perspective, that's when depth charts will start coming in.
Okay, what's that?
So depth charts will be where they will overlay. So you talk about playing across youth development phase. They will have a depth chart, say 12 to 14s, just to give 3 age groups there. And they will see, well, okay, he looks like he's going to be a right back at 12. We've got 2 right backs at 13. We've got 1 right back at 14. Who's the best out of them 3? Okay. Who's the long-term best out of those 3? Okay. So then as a coach, if you're saying, well, okay, he's in the middle, say he's on the 13 right back there, and you're thinking, well, the lad below him's better than him, and one above looks like potentially going to be better at him. Well, what do we do with that lad? Do we Do we keep him in there? Do we try and make him to the best possible right back he can? Is he going to be able to overtake them? Is it a physicality perspective? Is it an athletic thing? Or is it something actually is it a tactical thing? Is it a decision making thing? If not, okay, does he have the transferable skills in the under 13 year when he's still got 14 months left of his contract to the end of under 14s to say, well, you know what, we're going to try him as a 6. Okay. We're going to try him in a different position. Or are we going to say to that parent in the March of the under 13 season, with 2 months or 3 months left, if we're honest with you, your son's a good player. That's why we gave him a 2-year contract. However, at this moment in time, if we're looking at it, if we're looking at the fullback position, there may be a couple of players above and below that maybe a little bit more stronger than him. We're just letting you know now that we're going to continue working to him. We might look at maybe moving him into a different position. Yeah. And that's basis that you haven't got 3 outstanding 6s already between 12, 13, 14. Because then you're doing a disservice to the player and the parent. But that honesty, that's when that honesty can start and just say, listen, we're now getting into it where positions and the 11-a-side's creeping in now. You know, he's crept to that right back position. We think he does really, really well there. He does this really, really well. However, what we're saying at the moment is it might be quite tough for him to do that. So we're saying he's on track at the moment. Yeah. However, we might have a little conversation with you early into the 14th season. So you've planted them seeds early on with the player, with the parent, with the coaches in and around, and you're sort of saying, we're going to work with your son, by the way. We're not giving up on your son. Yeah. I would say that. Hey, by the way, I'm not giving up on him because I love him and he's brilliant and he does this really, really well. So we need to get him to do this, to be the best in the academy or best in his age group or his age range, across the age ranges at this thing there, and then we'll see where it takes us. However, we might have a conversation in the under 14 season that, you know what, another club, he will go and be their best player or in the top 3 for that club, and it might be an opportunity. It happened to me as a player, and I've had this conversation. It's the worst part of the job, but if you're honest, there's no comeback. Because you are giving your professional opinion. We are paid full-time coaches or paid part-time coaches. That's our profession. It's our opinion that he's probably best to go and play at another club where he can be maybe a bit bigger fish in a smaller pond potentially and get some additional stuff that maybe you see other players get here. And all of a sudden, he may go to this club and actually he might be the player that gets some additional things here and maybe play up because he's that good of a player. And I've seen it so many times that and conversations with parents since now. I was never on Instagram or LinkedIn when I was at United. I've come out now, and what's great is being on Instagram now is his old parents contacting me. Sorry, not old, ex-parents contacting me and saying, you know what, you released my lad at 13, 14, but you did it with honesty, humility, and empathy, which is massive. Yeah. You know what, and he's still playing professional football now. He's 28 now. He plays in League One, and it was the right move for him. You know what? Because had he stayed for longer, it would have killed him.
But you said,
we see it that end of 14 season, the players that are struggling, they become zombies, and I always think that's sometimes on the club because we've given them the 2-year contract. They've not paid for it. We've offered them a 2-year contract. Now I believe they should be 1-year contracts. Personally, okay. I think they should be 1-year contracts. But we've offered a 2-year contract, particularly because you're signing a boy at the end of 12. And trying to predict at the end of under 14.
Is that because they grow? This is what I've heard. It's because they grow so much and develop. You're kind of giving that 2-year chance so you can see how physically they change.
I think you potentially could still do that with a 1 year. Okay. And you're still giving them an opportunity to do it. But, the 2-year, whether it gives security to clubs or to parents and players, I don't know. But I see that last 4 or 5 months of under 14 season at times, and it's cruel. It's cruel sometimes. You see players and you're like, come on, let's.
But why are they zombies? Because they.
That's a horrible word, but do you know what I mean? Just, but as in, like, you just have they checked out type thing, because I think they know. Because what happens is the best players in 14 kick on. Okay. And even maybe some that were middle of the group kick on, whether it's physically, football IQ, the decision making. All of a sudden, stuff clicks. So
there's a gap. They feel it. The kids can feel it.
Correct. The gap starts appearing, and that's where we were talking about it last night, Matt, weren't we? That's where the education of parents is so key, because some parents, I've had parents say to me, like, well, what will I tell his school? I'm like, what do you mean? What he's going to tell his school? Well, he doesn't play for Man United anymore. I'm like, hang on, let's just talk about your son here now. I've had that.
Yeah.
So that's where the status thing comes in, and I see it now with the under 21 football now, and there's so many players in Cat 1 academies at under 21 and 19 and things, and I'm thinking, well, I think you need to probably go out now. I think if you're not, and that's not to say it's a race, but I'm thinking, if you're not in and around that first team probably now, and there's a reason for it, an injury or the waiting growth and maturation still at that age, I think you probably need to go and take yourself out of your comfort zone.
Just a question when you said, if you notice that your son's not getting maybe what other players are getting at this club, they could get it elsewhere. Do clubs, academies, do they have favourites? Do they have favourites? And if you are not a favourite and your child is not a favourite,
favourite in terms of ability,
you could just tell that they're treated like the club treats them differently. You just feel like parents want to know.
One word answer now.
Do academies have favourites? We just want to know the answer to that, and then I'll ask my follow-on.
Probably by human nature to a degree, but I would say you might sometimes have, go back to Matt's point, you might have a really talented player whose parents are a nightmare, but he's a really talented player. So sadly, I don't think the head of coaching or academy manager is gonna potentially, make a decision on that, because it's a business, isn't it? So they're not going to go unless there's something, really, really bad on that regard. I would say
Rashford a favourite?
No. Was Rashford a talented player?
Was he a favourite? Was Elanga a favourite? I'm just trying to there's nothing wrong with it. There's favourites. Was Scott a favourite?
I would say you have players. This sounds like I'm really trying to promote myself here, but genuinely didn't. You'll have an expectation that this player will probably be in the building for quite a while.
Okay.
You'll have an expectation that I've probably seen a player of this level.
Yeah.
Who won't get to the next level.
Okay.
So I wouldn't call it favourites. It might happen with other coaches, with other things, and I'm generally not dodging the question here. I would generally say you don't have favourites, but you have an expectation of how far they will get within the club.
Okay.
We call it building. We used to say to parents and stuff and to players, stay in the building. Just do enough to stay in the building in terms of your progression, things like that.
Did anyone make it under your time at Man United that surprised you? So when you talk about expectations, you didn't expect, and you were like, oh, okay.
So I think James Garner at Everton, now Jimmy Garner, he was always a good footballer. He was in a very talented group with Mason Greenwood, Angel Gomez, Ted Mengi playing in the Premier League. Brandon Williams is playing in the Premier League. Potentially Brandon into that category as well. And by the way, they're good footballers.
Yeah.
They're at Manchester United, they're good footballers. But there's probably, I'm sure they will admit it themselves, there was a level above with certain players, maybe the ones that Matt read out before. But they worked hard. Wonderful characters. So we go back to an outstanding quality that I mentioned before in a super skill. Character, personality is an outstanding quality. And if coaches are only looking for the stuff on the pitch as an outstanding quality, then you are missing something there. So
let's go into that bit. What type of character person? So for that player, you're good. Obviously, you're an academy player, or even Cat 1, you are good, but you can notice that you may not be the best. What would good character and personality look like to just help you a little bit more?
I think with the pair of them, fearlessness. So they didn't see it as probably pressure from parents and outside. They were, and Jimmy was a Liverpool fan. Since then, he's played for Manchester United and Everton, and so he's not always received back up. But Jimmy would come in with his Scouse accent and take the mick and things and stuff. If certain results and things. Brandon was from Harper A in Manchester, real working class area in Manchester that created characters, and Jimmy from Liverpool and things, and they just have a personality and a bubbliness about them, and you'd never have to ask them twice to do something in terms of just go and get the balls out of the cage, or can you go and get that gear, and they weren't sucking up, they weren't trying to be, I've got the balls in here, I've got the cones in nil. It would just be a genuine love of the game.
Yeah.
They wanted to train every day. They wanted to play every day. they wanted to compete all the time, and both of them could compete all the time. So I'd just say, just a love for the game, a love for the opportunity that they had. It wasn't, some people now, again, with social media and pressure from parents and agents and outside influences, it's becoming a job.
Yeah.
And I've said this to somebody recently, and as coaches and staff within academies, if it's starting to look like a job at 14, what are we doing? Because it shouldn't be a job till they're 17 and they've left school. So I said this again to Matt. I walk into academy buildings now, if I'm going and watching a player, or I'm going to just support somebody or whatever like that. And I walk in and I'll see, and they've got 5 o'clock, eat. Okay, I'll eat, thanks. 5:15, analysis.
Yeah.
5:30, education.
Yeah.
5:45, sports science or something like that. At 6 o'clock, on the grass. And I'm thinking, well, they've been at school all day, and they have a timetable, and they've been to maybe 4 different classrooms today, 6 different lessons. They get told every single week where they have to be, maybe on a rotated 2-week basis and stuff. So they've been at school all day and they've had all that thing, and they're coming to us now, and we're giving them again. You need to be here at this time. You need to be doing this at this time. I'm like, it's becoming a job. It's becoming a job too soon. It's looking like a job too soon with the stuff that we're asking of them and things like that, and GPSing, young players and stuff and things, and I see. I saw something the other day, and it was an under-14s like presentation that had been given to the players and stuff, and it had like a graphic of the team, and then it had in possession objectives, out possession objectives, and then it had set pieces for and against. This was last 2-3 weeks. That's an under-14s. These are all 13 years old. So these are all 13
but Neil, maybe
years old.
that's where the game is going.
Well.
Maybe that's where the game is going.
Where's the mic for me to drop and quit? Because but why has to it?
Because it's competitive. It's getting even more competitive.
We need disruptors. We need disruptors in the game who say, okay, these are children. These are children. Ask Steven Gerrard.
But
Wayne
they're children
Rooney,
who want to be professionals.
They are. Correct. So it's not on them. It's not on the parents who are getting it. It's on us as adults to understand that these are children, and these need to be children-related, age-specific stuff. I guarantee they are not doing that for that child. If they're getting that, they are not doing it for that child. They're doing it for them and for that game and for that result. In possession, out of possession stuff, get it. But that's not a team. That can be a general team one, but it should be individual tactics. So your son, okay, he should have 2 or 3 objectives in the game that he's playing related to his development at this moment in time, or where we'd like him to get to, or maybe in the position that he's playing, etc. He shouldn't be looking at match tactics and things like that. It's got to be individual tactics. How can I get the best out of my ability today with the opponents I'm playing, with the team that I'm playing with? We've got to be strong. So we can't just accept the status quo. This is where the game's going, because I guarantee it won't. I've been in the game long enough now. It will come out of a cycle again, and inverted wingers we'll start going to the other side again, and then we'll say in academy football, oh, where's all the number 9s? Where's all the number 9s in the game? Well, the number 9s have gone because we've got inverted wingers, so we now need link plays and things like that. I'll give you a thing here now. I'm going to sound really, really geeky now. I went onto the my godson has been moaning at me to do the Fantasy Premier League this year. Yeah. Again, I won it last year. Unlucky Ted, and. He said, "God, come on, do it," and I think it starts tomorrow, doesn't it? So I just did it before. When I was with Matt, and I literally clicked on the strikers. Yeah. From there, it's hardly any there. Yeah. Honestly, you look at it, you're like Haaland, João Pedro, things, Sesko who's just going in there, Goikarez, and I think you see when the transfer window this time, there was literally out there, wasn't it? It was Isaac, in terms of who's available potentially, Isaac, Sesko, Goikarez. Maybe Pedro, maybe in few, like it used to be so many more. So that's just one position. But what I'm saying is, there will be a cycle. Yeah. Again, like total football, like tiki-taka, like Barca, like this, where, and I think that's why Paris winning the Champions League was really, really good. They could play when they wanted to play. They could play in tight areas, but they got the ball forward to their best 3 players or the best 3 attacking players quickly. Yeah. Get the ball forward with quality. Quickly, but with quality. So, by the way, I appreciate exactly what you said then.
Yeah.
But we're adults; they're children. We've got to be better. We've got to say that there is enough time
Yeah.
between when they have finished school, and yes, they'd still do education programs within scholarships, but they're in every day. They're full time. Then that's when you can really start adding it up there. I guarantee the reason they're doing that at 14, 15, 16 is the coach or the club or the head of coaching that also feels that maybe under pressure or they're in a race. The players that I spoke to you before, the players that Matt read out there, I guarantee will have never, ever, ever had up to under 16 any match day prep, set pieces for and against.
Controversial, but would they make it? Obviously, they're in the game.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, as parents, you feel the pressure of today's 2025.
Yeah.
What's happening? Data is becoming prevalent in every industry.
Yeah.
Of course, it's going to also be more prevalent in football. So they want to do the GPS. They want to get their stats. They want to see how far. So I know you're saying it's a cycle, but structurally, fundamentally, maybe things are changing, and we'll see if it's a paradigm shift or whether it's a phase. But I do want to ask a question just around, you spoke about, if a player gets released or having those conversations where you might want to think about being a bigger fish in a smaller pond. Question. So when someone is considering going into the academy system and their child, and I love what you say, because one thing I'm getting from you is in this moment in time, everything can change. So at that time, under 8s, they're the best, probably in the country, one of the best in the country. They're getting offers left, right and centre. Top Cat 1 clubs are, enticing them. The other clubs are also, wanting them. Should parents choose based on, so based on stay in the highest club as possible, as long as possible? Or should they be thinking about other things, such as, my child, I think, is going to be a striker or a defender. I know it's early, but a certain position. And clubs, tell me if I'm wrong, produce certain positions better than others. And so I'm going to go to another club where they're producing midfielders and strikers rather than just being at a club which is, got a brand and a good name, and I'm going to stay the highest, the longest. Does that make sense? And tell me if I'm wrong in the second part, because I'm feeling like I'm sussing out the club.
So I would say, go back to what I knew. We would sit down with a parent, sit down with a player, and not just go off the players that we produce and things, but also celebrate the players that still play professional football. So your Dwight McNeils, your Josh Brownhills, your Jack Harrisons, your Ben Brayton Diaz's, all these players that still play, Michael Keane, that are still playing in a high level there. We'd say, and what we do, we produce, or we support a journey for players to fulfil the potential, however that is. But we'd also talk about that it's a long-term model and things like that. We will give them expression, freedom, experiences, go on tours and things like that. I get the feeling that it's very much again the here and the now. What you're thinking that you need to hear for the here and now. I would say that's where you need to be around skilled people who are honest and trustworthy, and say, you know what, your boy looks a little bit special, or your boy's got something different. I would say, and that's what I've just to segue. That's what I've been doing for people recently. Is people contacting me and saying, what would you do here? How would you potentially go around this and things, and opening myself up to different conversations of what I know. And by the way, these are still people in under 21s. These are 19-year-olds signed pro professional players, inverted commas. So I would say you need good people around you to say, you know what, your boy's all right. Your boy's quite good. I would say he needs high challenge.
Okay.
He needs to be tested in the best environment
for as long as possible.
For as long as possible.
Okay.
You then also need skilled people to say, you know what, I would say potentially that club may be a little bit better for him because he's going to be seen a little bit more. His skills and his traits lend themselves better to not necessarily that football club, but this particular level at the moment. And again, conversations is that might not be the easiest thing for you to hear. The thing is now with Brexit, you've seen it all the time. United have signed 2 boys from Arsenal. I think Newcastle just signed a boy from Liverpool this week. There is a lot of movement up to there. Don't agree with it.
Oh, okay.
Put it out there, old school.
Okay.
Or certainly up to a certain age. I don't even think they should be signing contracts at 8 years old. That might be another topic
But
in a
it's-
minute. But
It's registrations.
okay, still a contract. They'll call it registration, but it's still a contract. I'm not too sure. So if your son is, and you see it now, I think the last Euros, the makeup of the squad. I think if you actually looked at their sort of original first club within academy or centre of excellence football, was I think made up of a lot of Cat 2s or lower league clubs, etc. So it does show you, and so I also think that if you go to a certain club and you do particularly well, and you fly, and maybe if you are a specific position that a top club isn't great at producing, because they produce a lot of attacking players who, similar to what Matt said, do maybe sort of cookie cutter stuff, then it might actually be better for your son to go and play, be a top player. Get some different exposures, maybe playing up, maybe going on certain tours because he's classed as the best 3 players in his age group, or maybe across 2 ages like that. The scouts are out there; they will 100% pick them up. But I think if you have the right people around you who can educate you and say, no, he's not bad, I'd say he probably needs to stay there and really challenge himself, push himself, and see how far he can get to. But at the same time, have those people around you just say, you know what, I think that club would be perfect for him there. And that's what you need. You need people with experience, not putting out there for myself, but that's what I've been doing for people is supporting them on those journeys. And
It's
being
hard
honest. It is
sometimes
very hard. It's very hard to hear.
because environment is so key, and someone like Scott, obviously he's a fantastic footballer. You said you've coached him and he's been great. But where he is now and being, nominated for a Ballon d'Or, is that something that you would have seen at? Can you see that this child's going to be like a Ballon d'Or? Because some people's Instagram, there might be 9 and the parent has put Ballon d'Or winner 2035. I'm being serious. I'm being serious.
No.
But is that something you can see, as a coach? No. Can you see that this child is a Ballon d'Or quality at 10?
I'll jump on this one because I've got personal experience with Michael Elise.
Yeah.
At 9 years old, he was.
But
no, so I think if you were to go percentages, 98%, no, you can't tell. But there are outliers as well, because I remember coaching Michael and just going...
So what, Matt, tell me, so the parents want to know, so you're saying Michael Elise at 9 years old, you're like, whoa, that's when you spot this kid has a chance of making it, but also being the best in the world, is what you're saying. How do you see that at 9? What is it? What is it that you're doing?
What you can tell, and there's that famous quote of, just because you're the best in the world at 9 doesn't mean you're going to be the best in the world at 12 or whatever. But there is something to be said that you can only do what you can do. And Michael at 9 years old was the best. So if you're going to sit there and make a bet...
But what was it? Was it football IQ? Was it skill level? Was it...
Everything.
Tell me more. We want to know more.
Athleticism, touch, IQ. He was... Any attribute of football, he was head and shoulders above everyone.
Every attribute of football.
And it then kind of... you watch him play a game and you could put him in any position. He's going to be the best player on the pitch.
Wow.
He gets released by Chelsea because of his attitude.
Okay.
City take him.
Yeah.
Without thinking twice, they just take him because they know how good he is. He gets released by City because of his attitude. That's when he has a bit of a problem, because then he's got to try and find a club where he's now got a reputation for being released by two. But he was that good. He was. And look, there are anomalies. Do you know what I mean? He is an anomaly. He's an outlier. But if you were to watch an under-9 match and you see Michael and somebody's like, right, bet on who's going to be a Ballon d'Or winner out of that, you would bet on him. But
wow.
Anything can happen. Yeah. Anything can happen. But at that time, watching an under-9 match, you'd never seen anything like it. So it's... But again, I go back to 98% of the time, it isn't.
But every parent feels like they have that 2%.
But I personally would never ever say... I don't think I've even said.
No, I would
ever.
never say it.
Yeah,
never ever say it.
But that's what I want to know. What people would say.
I don't think I've ever thought it. I would
say
say
that,
he's got a good chance. He's got a good chance.
You'd never say it.
He's got a. You know what? If he continues on the trajectory that he's on, and has a bit of luck along the way, because football's all about a lot of luck as well.
Yeah.
And I always think it's when opportunity and talent meet together that is a real pinch point and things like that. You would say with the likes of Scott and Marcus, Kobbie, Anthony and things like that, and Jesse, and you'd say they've got a good chance
Yeah.
if they continue on the trajectory that they're on, and we provide them with high challenge, high support, and we put them with some really, really good players along the way. There's hopefully a really good chance that that they'll get to the first team. Or they'll. We didn't even think of that. We it was like a waiter really. If we can present the professional development phase with a really highly talented player like Matt just said there, who has a good football IQ, who's a good kid with a good attitude.
Yeah.
I think Marcus did a documentary or an interview last night with Mickey Richards and Alan Shearer, and he spoke. I've only seen this clip, I've not watched it yet, and he spoke about the sort of the ethos of a Man United player and the attitude of what it needed to be, and how it would be kicked out of you, and not kicked out of you, it would be kicked out of you by other players because you're playing with other top players, and you just get pulled upon. And Northwest of England, working class club, with history of producing good players and stuff. So I think it was our job to try and give to the under-18s manager every year a player or a couple of players, and that was always our job, is to say, we've got them this far with what you just said there. We at 16 they're still producing the things that we saw at 9, at 12, at 14. They've carried on. They've added to it now. Here you go. We've baked. We've helped. We've supported along with parents, MDT, everybody. We've supported and we baked that cake. Now we need you to start putting a little bit of icing on it, and then hopefully he gets to the first team and they put a little bit of decoration and the cherry on top and things, and that's all you can hope. If you'd have asked me, would Marcus Rashford played over 400 games for Man United? I'd have said no. I don't know, because obviously he was also coming through at a time where we had Beckham, Scholes, a bit younger, sorry, but he was coming into a club that was winning Champions Leagues or in Champions League finals, 3 Champions League finals in 4 years. So when we were tasked with producing players, we weren't just being tasked with producing players for Man United first team to be good enough to play in the Premier League. We had to be good enough to play in a Champions League team that was Giggs, Beckham, Scholes, but Keane, all these players, and then after that, the Verons and the Tevezes and Rooney's and stuff. So we had that challenge. So all we could do is say that we've identified a talented under-9. We've created so much variability, same word, volume, and challenge within this period here. And we've recognised at 13, 14, they might need something more here, and we might start bringing them out day release, or they might go into the school that was attached to the club, and things like that. We've done everything we possibly can to make sure that we've maintained and enhanced and challenged this player to fulfil the dream of playing for the first team.
And sorry, because I need to clarify this.
No,
because I am 100%, more than 100% against people publicly, parents publicly, players, but coaches publicly, putting out videos, putting out stories saying this player is destined to be this and this and this. Okay. I saw Michael, and I would never. The only person I'd share that comment with was Sean. Wow. And me and Sean would have that conversation. It would never go to.
Would you tell his parents?
No.
Wow.
No way. And there are players that, if we just, for argument's sake, for a second, you say at under 9, Michael was 10 out of 10, and there were players that were 9 out of 10. Some of them aren't playing football now, so they weren't that far off. Yeah. They're not playing football. But if you're, if you was to say you had to, when you was coaching Marcus, because you say Ravel Morrison was probably the most talented player. So if you was to get asked, out of this group here, who's got who do you think's probably, who has the most talent and who could potentially go to the top? You might have said Ravel. Yeah. So that's what I would have said of Michael. But circumstances, luck, everything else.
That's why I want to ask a question.
So one thing I'd say about Michael is he had very strong parents, very strict parents.
Was that a good thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, mum and dad, very, very good, very strict with him. And it's luck, because again, we know players that, again, say Michael's 10 out of 10, we knew 9 out of 10s, and it's just when you're just looking at them in that moment of time. But the luck, injuries, maybe next season there's a coach that maybe doesn't fancy him as much or isn't as good. There's a lot of poor coaching. There's a coach that isn't as good and doesn't help that player as much, and home life, everything. it's even when you all agree with this. Even when you sign your first pro contract, you are a million miles away from a professional career. A million miles. And that's you signing a pro contract at 18. There's 18-year-olds I work with now that have signed their pro contracts. They're thinking about giving up football. Wow. They've signed professional contracts with professional clubs, and they're thinking about giving up football.
So on that, I'm sure Matt and Neil, you've seen very talented players that have a good chance. You won't say that, but they have a good chance, but they're not playing anymore. What can us parents learn from why that is the case? Why is it at 50? Because I got to meet Gareth Southgate, actually. My son interviewed him for his new book that's coming out in the autumn on leadership.
Plug.
A plug for the book Back in Time, found on Amazon. And I was asking him questions like, and he said, you know, having coached, 15s, 16s at England, some players where he thinks, wow, like they are going to make it and they don't. So then what went wrong, and what can we learn as parents? Like, what went wrong when they're still a million miles away, but closer than the under 10 parent, and they're good? What's gone wrong? Have you seen that at Man United?
I would say the players that Matt listed before were always in the top 3 of their groups.
Okay.
So I think very, very rarely. I think talented players at younger ages maybe drop off, whether it's physically, whether it's decision making, whether the club just bring in other players, as clubs do, at certain ages, and all of a sudden it then becomes a struggle because somebody has been brought into your position and they may be a little bit more equipped for the next couple of years, etc. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's been many players that have been up there and have dropped off. Really, I wouldn't say there's been many at all. Advice, I would just say, just try and enjoy the journey. And I know that's hard to say, and I know that, but it's the same when people say, what should be the most important thing in football? Fun. And people go, oh, okay, yeah. But I know it sounds fluffy, but you have to enjoy the journey because it's exhausting. I used to say to people at Manchester United, everybody leaves Manchester United at some point. Sir Alex Ferguson left the club at some point. David Beckham left the club at some point.
Rashford has left.
Rashford, I left the club at some point. Was there as a bit as a player, then as a bit as a coach, with a gap in between. You get off the journey sometime. I used to call it the analogy of, it's a train journey. Some get off at different stops along the way. Some stops under 11s, under 13s.
Yeah.
Some stops are the first team after 20 appearances. Some after 400 appearances. Yeah. Some retire. The state of Ryan Giggs and Johnny Evans, who've just come back now and things, if they're fortunate enough to do that. But somebody leaves, man. You always leave Manchester United. You always leave a club at a certain point. What have you maximised? What have you, when you look back at that time, what are the experiences? So for the recent thing I did out in Romania, and I did also something for the National Grassroots Show recently, which was really, really important in Birmingham, where loads of grassroots coaches came, grassroots parents came, some kids as well, but predominantly the grassroots community, really. And I got a video, I messaged Scott, and he very kindly did me a video, and I asked him the question. I didn't prep him or anything like that. And I said, in all your time in Manchester United, what was your favourite moment? He's won the Europa League. He's won the FA Cup twice. He's represented the club. I think he's been captain on one point. And he sent me the video, and I can show you, maybe even share it. I'll speak to Scott if he's happy for me to share it. And he says, walking out under 9s to Champions League music, dressed in the World Cup kits. And he said in the video, he said, me and my dad, when we're together now, still talk about that. That's my favourite moment. Yeah. So he didn't mention any game, didn't mention any training session. Certainly didn't mention any of my training sessions. Didn't even mention tours. So when I speak to players now, again, who've internationals or play professional football, what's the thing that you remember? They talk about, after the Med Cup when we got beat by Real Madrid in the semi-finals, Derek Langley went in the pool, or Stuart Lester went in the pool, and then we took all his clothes, he was just in his thing, and we wouldn't let him out. We were all pushing him, and that was Marcus, Rashford, some really talented players in that group. Wouldn't let him out, and they're pushing it in there. When we got ice cream in the Med Cup, pillow fights at Shrewsbury, World Cups at the Cliff. So you're like, okay, yeah. So fun moments, no games. No, when we went on that bus to play that festival at Chelsea that time, and it's all the fun moments. So we've got to make sure as adults that along this journey, while they're here, you have these wonderful, wonderful experiences. whilst being challenged. So the top players get challenged. Well, all players get challenged, and we make sure that these top players are challenged enough to fulfil their potential. Are we giving them enough to be able to fulfil all the potential from that? But going back to those stats, it's a long journey, and many don't make it, and many leave at 16, at 18, and they've had 9-10 years of a journey. And if it's not enjoyable, if it feels like a job, again, go back to my mentor Tony Whelan, Manchester United, 34 years, ex-player, ex-social worker, which was massive. Always drummed into me. It's the person before the player, that child before the player. Always the child before the player. And if it doesn't feel like Christmas Day every time that they come into the club, we need to have a look at that, because that's on us. Again, obviously outside influences now, we've got to be able to do that as well. But they should be getting home from school, packing their bag, and they're waiting for their mum and dad to get in from work, or waiting for their mum and dad to take them. They should be racing into that. I don't think anybody's been racing in to go into analysis or to sports science and things like that, and that's not having a pop again at MDT.
To be honest, my oldest son probably does. He's like that. He's that way inclined, where he's always watching analysis. He loves that stuff. Literally, I'm like, it's okay. You could. He loves that. But just a question, because you speak about the role of coaches and the role of the clubs and making sure that it's fun, but also you said 100% of them, by the grace of God, are going to be adults, and that's also what you're preparing them for. But what about the role of the parent around also being intentional about shaping their path? So when we think about the football industry, most of us parents would just think about our child playing for the first team, which they're in the academy of, or playing in the Premier League. But should parents be thinking about Europe? Should we be thinking more broadly and widely earlier? For example, so you see players that do go to Dortmund, go abroad, Belgium, Germany, different clubs, and they're probably thinking like, at 14, maybe 16, turning down maybe even a scholar at their club because they want to think more broadly. Should we be thinking like that, or are you thinking that's even thinking too far ahead, too early? Like, yeah.
I'll throw something at you that I don't think Sean's going to like.
Okay.
I think
Sean's not here, so let's go.
He's not going to listen to this.
I think it's being really, really like grounded and really, really, really realistic. If a parent and a player understood what a professional football player was, the parent maybe won't be as pushy with it and as headstrong about it, because the majority of professional football players earn 60k or less a year for 5 or 6 years. You're not retiring on that. You're going to have to find another job when you get to 30. So if that's, if you're looking at being a professional football player, and the chances are that's what you're going to end up being if you just look at the stats, then it's just a whole other question to think about, because you're talking about Premier League. It's going to Europe and everything else. I know boys that have gone out to Europe, but it's just.
But my question is more: should parents be more proactive than just thinking about they're at this club, this academy, the first team path? If their child, because I get what you guys are saying, 1% chance, but.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. Somebody's got to make it.
Yeah, somebody's got to make it. And it's even like 10 plus and 11 plus. Like thousands, hundreds of thousands of parents are preparing their children for a finite amount of school places in year 7. But should we say don't do it because, do you know what I mean? So I know I hear that. So 'cause I think there's also perspective, like always having the right perspective, being grounded, but at the same time, being intentional about how do I maximize the chance of my child. I'm not just going to think about England. Should I also be open at 16 to look elsewhere? Do you know what I mean? Look broader than the UK system. If my child is talented and they might do well at Napoli, or they might do well else. Do you see what I mean? Or what do you guys think? Am I being too far?
Can I flip it to you?
Yeah, flip it to me.
So, were your mum and dad? Are they still alive?
Yeah, they are.
Were they alive when you when you went to Cambridge?
Yes.
Did you have an idea of what profession you wanted to do?
I'm one of 5 siblings, and I'm number 4. And I was just like, what do my siblings do? So I went into investment banking. But
is that what you went to university to do?
I did economics, so it's kind of on that route. But my siblings were the first to go to university. So my parents didn't go to university. We did. So yeah.
What?
And I never thought I'd go to Cambridge.
So when you got to Cambridge, how many was that? 3 years, 4 years?
3 years.
3 years. And then did you do a master's after that? Or just...
I did a master's some time after.
So the 3 years. Did your parents say to you in year 1 or year 2, what job are you going to do? What job are you going to get at the end of this?
No, because my parents were professionals like that, if that makes sense. So we are the first to even work in a professional type of industry. But with parents of the generation now, even though I know football is different, where some people think they're professionals but they only played Sunday league, I know. But they probably are more in the know-how than my parents were about uni or working the professional.
The way I'd say it, and I agree with what Matt just said there. So my son has always been passionate about animals from being a young, and they play with animals. We'd take them to the zoo and things like that. He then just maintained this passion.
Yeah.
So we never knocked it out with him when he got a bit older. Like, oh, you're still into animals, still birds and stuff. Because maybe when you get to a teenager, maybe people aren't doing that. He's like, yeah, I still like animals. I'm still going to watch Attenborough. I'm still going to read books. I'm still going to go out bird watching. I'm going to do this. Okay, great. Okay, brilliant. At sixth form, nothing. So he did PE, and I think he had to do biology in order to go to zoology. He's now studying zoology at university. We then started talking to people a little bit when I took him to some zoos and stuff, and things said, how much do you earn? And I'm asking people as they work, and I just go and ask questions like you're asking me a question now, and they'd say like 28 at the top, 30 thing. So we had that conversation when we say, we will continue to support you, son. But just to let you know, that's not a huge salary if you then want children, want to buy a house and things like that. However, if that's your passion and you have maintained that passion yourself, we have supported that passion. And now he's in, I think, second year, going into third year in September of it there now. And it's tough, by the way, because it's not necessarily what he thought he was going to be doing, and it's a little bit too much of this. But he's still maintaining it because he thinks, okay, I want to have a career working in this industry in some form. It might be actually private sector. You might actually go private sector, maybe in some money or whatever like that. But that's us as parents maintaining a lifelong passion. Yeah. What I think happens in football is that at a very early age, go back to that job thing, we start talking about the end goal when, in my opinion, the best parents and the best coaches talk to the player about getting the next contract, stay in the building, get to the next stage. Stuff will happen and change in front of your eyes. People will leave the club. People will come into the club. You'll be challenged and things will happen. And I just think that we just get too far ahead of ourselves in terms of as children.
I hear that.
As children.
But I think I'm also, so just very quickly, I'm also very passionate about letting children know about portfolio careers though. So even someone might become a footballer, but even me, I was an investment banker and then I went into consulting, and then you're not going to be, some people work in the same place for a long time, forever, and staying there. But most people, especially in this generation, are going to do different things. So when I'm talking to my boys, they want to be footballers, but I'm like, but what else do you want to be? So my son, you're an author, and what else do you want to be? And my son at Chelsea, who is incredibly talented footballer, and me, I think he's going to be that 2% and my first. But I also tell him, Zach, 1% is that, Zach, you're going to be an amazing lawyer. You, the way you are, you can also be an amazing lawyer. And then, so getting them to think about, because at 30, 35, yes, like, I'm sure you will do different things. You played, you were a coach, you're also consulting, also a business person. I think that's also really important, that to not knock the dream that you can't make it, but you may make it, but for a certain period of time. But what else are you going to do? What else are you going to do? Or what else are you interested in? What are your passions? Because the best job in the world is to do what you're passionate about and get paid for it. That is actually the best job.
So that's what I would go back to. I would say is, why did that kid start playing football? Hopefully it's because his dad or sibling or granddad or mum or something saw him playing, saw him enjoying it, took him down there. Hopefully it's not because they took him down because it's a project footballer and but it's, as in like at that stage in terms of taking them through that, they are looking for the fact that they've loved that. That for me is the thing, is that we always say to them, if you can turn this job, if you can turn this hobby and this passion into a job, that is absolutely fantastic. but the top players are the ones that are earning the big money. Like you say, I speak to people who are in League Two. Some of my ex-players, League Two, non-league, National League, and things like that, and they're earning less than potentially people doing other jobs from there. So we have to certainly maintain those other outside interests, and that again, and academies do a lot of work on that. Like you say, is making sure that we find a backup and things. But we've just got to protect that childhood really. And for me is that I don't think my son will have said at some point, I want to work with animals. I want to be a big cat zookeeper. I want to work with big cats. I want to work with birds. I want to be a zookeeper would probably been the very first thing, and then it evolves to, well, actually what's involved in that and things like that. Our job was like probably not going to be a zookeeper, probably not going to be head of Knowsley Safari Park or Chester Zoo. Might be with time and things like that, but okay. But he loves this. What can we do to support this? Okay, well, I'm going to take him to a zoo. I'm going to take him to a park. I'm going to a safari park. I'm going to take him. I once drove down to Kent from Manchester.
Wow.
To take him because there's the two biggest cat parks were down in Kent and things. So I was supporting that. Yeah. But I was never sort of say. There was never a conversation along the way there to sort of say, well, when you do this, we need to be thinking about this, or we need to be doing that. It was maintaining that passion. And I know that's not the same analogy. I know football is different, but I just think. Hopefully it's me, hopefully it's Matt, hopefully it's yourself. We've just got to have these people in the industry who are not, by the way, we are not killing people's dreams, because I've seen dreams happen. Again, the list of players that Matt said there, and there's 100 of those that are still playing professional football and earning good money and things like that. I spoke to a 21-year-old recently who is playing in the Championship for a middle of the thing team, and he honestly said to me, I hate football.
Wow.
I hate it now. I hate it.
I think that's where...
And he's a professional footballer earning thousands and thousands of pounds a week. But I hate football.
Many people in their day job will tell you.
Yeah, no, so that's kind of going back a little bit on what I said. Like, you're only here once. Go for it. Like,
100%.
Like, we're kind of sort of business owners now in what we're doing. Like, and it's, you've just kind of gone for it, and that's what we're doing. So it's possible. We've seen it. It's possible. But I think because we've seen the flip side of it as well, we're just a little bit more cautious of it. And again, like 100%, if your child wants to be a football player, do everything you possibly can to support them to do it. Go out of your way, give them everything, any resources you have that can help them get there. Yes, if their idol is whoever it is and they want to be like that, yes. But then as the parent, as a responsible parent, understand what professional football is and what it looks like. And then do the extras outside of their club training so they can fulfill their potential as a football player. But then also do the extras outside of their football. That's going to make sure that they actually fulfill their potential outside of football as well. Because again, we've seen unbelievable talents not make it, and they put everything into football and they didn't make it. So it's just when you've seen both sides of the coin, it's it just opens your eyes up a little bit more. But if I had a kid, I would be doing everything that you're doing. 100%.
My dad did it for me. My dad literally just, drove me everywhere, watched every single game. I tried to do it with my lads, obviously a bit more difficult because I worked weekends when I was at United and things. I had two jobs, worked 7 days a week, 3 evenings. Wow. For 17 years. Missed a lot of things as a dad, which, I regret now. And that's what I would, also echo to parents is that we've seen it, you're seeing it yourself now. My youngest will be 21 this year. And they grow up so fast. And, I know for a fact that my kids would love to go back to grassroots football. Go back in time if you could. And I'd love to go back and watch them and things, knowing what I know now. And it goes so quick. You just enjoy it. Yeah. And by the way, if your son's a talented footballer, son or daughter talented footballer, enjoy it. Yeah. Enjoy it. Because there's so many parents up and down the country who would love for their son or daughter to be a talented footballer or to want to play football. Because, by the way, some parents want their kids to play football and they don't like it. Yeah. So, just encourage that passion. I just want to echo what Matt said there, because hopefully it hasn't come off as a negative episode. Academy football is brilliant. Grassroots football is brilliant. Professional football is brilliant. Everything that comes with it. And it's fantastic to see. Turn my TV on and see see them doing so well. There was one moment last year I went to where was I? Stopped off in a pub somewhere, and it had Soccer Saturday on the screen. And the 5 people that came up on the screen in order, I took a photo somewhere, were all lads that I and other top people had worked with, and they weren't none of them in the Premier League. And I was like, wow, that's just amazing that they're still playing, they're still doing. They're doing it now as a job, something that they loved.
Yeah.
And that is all I'm trying to say is us as adults, we have a responsibility to guide, to challenge, to ask them to aim for the moon.
Yeah.
Just support them in aiming for the moon and the stars and things like that. But just build some realism in. And it goes back to the old Pop Idol and American Idol and whatever it's called, was it called back in the day? And you see the parents push him out on stage and they can't sing. Yeah. And they're dreadful, and you're like, what are you doing to your child? What are you doing to your child? And that's what I would say is I've seen that sometimes where I've said that to parents to a degree. Yeah. Depending on the parents, something like, you need to be careful here. You need to be careful here because you're gonna not lose, but you're pushing them here, and they're probably not at the stage to be pushed at the moment. Just let them have 3-4 months of enjoying it again. Work with us. We'll guide them. We'll support them. We're going to give them everything. Because if anything, the best players just need facilitating anyway. Yeah. You don't coach the best. You facilitate the best players. You coach and you work with the players just under that level and the other levels to try and get them above the threshold. Or if not, they're gonna leave and go into another club and be the best because of what you've given them. You've given them everything. So it goes back to your favourites thing. If anything, you work with the lads. Not the bottom. That's a horrible word, but that are just. Maybe not at the upper thresholds and stuff, and you're trying to get them to the level, so you're giving them more. Yeah. Or coaches should be doing it. But yeah, just to echo what Matt said there, we're not saying that the journey is not wonderful, but the journey is only wonderful if you trust the process, if you try and enjoy it during the way. Next time you go out, if you're listening to this as an academy parent, a grassroots parent, you know what? If you usually stand up, take a chair, and I guarantee your body language, just by your body language, I think. Dr. Platz, who was on here a while ago, was talking about your body language as a parent is huge. Your body language as a coach is huge. Just go it and just say, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm just going to enjoy this. And my son is healthy enough to run around a football pitch. And by the way, he's not bad. Yeah. And he's talented enough and do that. You know what, I'm just going to enjoy it and see where it takes us. And when he needs me, I'm going to be there for him. And when the coach says he needs a little bit of this, I'm going to help him. When the coach says he's flying, I'm going to be dead proud and say, yeah, off you go. And that just goes back to, again, I've worked with a lot of, I won't name the names, but I've had a lot of ex-professional footballers, top footballers, sons who I've coached. And I mean, Champions League winners, Premier League winners, sons. Champions League winners, sons who I've coached. And they've been different class. I go into the room, to probably give it away. The assistant manager at Manchester United at one point had just won the Champions League, and I had his son, and I was with my colleague, and I said to him, such and such, doing all right at the moment, where we at? And I said it all, and said anything to you, he went, no, you're the specialist. He said, I'm up there, you're the specialist, you work with me. And he had actually worked at the younger ages as well, at the club, and he went, no, you're the specialist. Honestly, the ex-pros kids are at times, the easiest to manage because you just say, we trust you, and we know it's exhausting, and we know it's so hard to get there. So why are we going to put all this pressure on? Because we know that actually the pressure comes when you get in the first team, and mortgages are riding on it, and bonuses are to get whatever it is for the family and things like that, and to get the next house or to go to here because the pressure of whatever. That's when the pressure comes. So they know it already. I think sometimes the struggle is from maybe people who haven't lived it themselves or haven't been in the industry and maybe aren't being advised by the right people at times outside of the game potentially.
In closing, I think we're going to close now, but I just want to also share everything you've just said actually reminds me of one of my favourite quotes actually, which comes from the Bible, and it says, teach a child the way that they should go and they won't depart from it. And the version says, teach them to find their gifts and abilities, and they won't. And I think that's the job of the parent, is to search for that in your child and not be realistic. But when you see whether it's they love animals or whether actually they're really talented at football or whether they're going to be an amazing swimmer, and each child is different. So how do you find that gift in your child and then support them so they can find their own path? And that's the challenge of every parent. That is the challenge. I need to get that off. But I will give it to you. But just last question to close. What's the best young player that you have ever coached? I know you've got a lot of players that you've coached who are probably like, you better say me, all the professionals.
I have to say with 2 lads, otherwise they'll go back.
But just the best, for whatever reason, they were the best young player. Whether it's just they were coaching, whatever it is. But who have you enjoyed coaching the most?
I'm going to cop out because
he's got too many loyal clients.
Just honestly, I said it all the time. I've said it on a previous podcast. Honestly, when I see a player, pop up on Soccer Saturday or anything, and now on Instagram I get to see it that they've signed for, and I drop them a message or something like that, and they just say, thanks coach, or thanks Neil, really appreciate whatever you did and stuff. We're creating human beings, we're creating better human beings and things, and that's what we're trying to give them. We're giving them life skills to be better human beings, because as I said before, 1% make it, but 100% become adults. So how are we, shaping them as people and things? So it is a cop out, but there generally isn't one player over another. Was I delighted for Scott winning the Serie A after maybe leaving the club and wanting a point to prove. He's captain Scotland now. I think he was the MVP. But I'm also just as proud as Ntuma Masanka, one of my ex-players who played for Wrexham and left the club, who just set up his own cakes business now in Manchester.
Oh, wow.
And we recently had an event in Manchester that Jeremy Frimpong was part of. And it was a real community in Manchester, in North Manchester and things. And he was out there giving out free cakes to the community and things like that. And now I believe I saw something on LinkedIn that he's been picked up by somebody and somebody's seen him there. So it goes in all realms. You've got somebody who's just, in their industry, being the best that they can be, but actually he's come out of one industry and he's now forging a new career for himself. So.
And that's what I think parents need to do more.
100%.
How do you use football as a platform, whether it is the end goal or not, to get your child to where they need to be so that they enjoy their adult life?
100%. Shout out Ntuma.
But how do we, if people want to connect with you or follow you, what's the best way to do that?
I am becoming more and more on social media now. So I'm on LinkedIn, and I think we can maybe put it on the thing, my Twitter my Instagram handle, but I think it's Neil Harris _0104. But I'm sure they'll find me. I'm sure the guys will put it in the tag from here. But
and then I know, Neil and Matt, you've got a business that you're doing together, and in Manchester you're setting up a new location. So do you want to just share? If people want to get coached by the both of you, they can find you.
To be confirmed.
Okay, to be confirmed. Okay, cool.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
Watch this
Maybe
space.
by the time that this gets edited and goes out, we'll have
Okay, cool.
a little bit more to do, but
We might have a lot more by then.
A lot
The
more
way the
to
show goes,
talk
it
about.
might be 6 months' time.
Thank you so much, Neil.
Thank you very
And Matt,
much.
thank you for welcoming me on Project Footballer to join you, asking questions.
well done.
Good.
Thank you.
Good done.